In the heart of a vast, uncharted wilderness, where the line between myth and reality blurs, one young warrior will face an unimaginable threat. Naru, a skilled hunter from a primitive tribe, finds herself caught in a battle for survival against an enemy from beyond the stars. As the jungle echoes with the sounds of battle, the hunt takes on a new, terrifying meaning, and the fate of her people rests in her hands. This is the story of Ko. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dense, untouched wilderness. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the crispness of the trees, their branches swaying with the rhythm of the wind. Naru stood at the edge of a clearing, her dark eyes fixed on the horizon, where the forest stretched endlessly in all directions. Her skin was darkened from the sun, her hands rough and calloused from years of survival. She was a member of a primitive tribe, one that had lived for generations in these wild lands, untouched by the world outside. With her ryu, an ancient, sharpened axe made of stone and wood clutched tightly in her hands, she prepared herself for another hunt. The tribe did not fully recognize her as a capable hunter, dismissing her efforts as those of a mere girl. But to Naru, the hunt was more than just a task, it was a test of survival, a fight to prove herself, and the only way to gain the respect she so desperately sought. Every swing of her axe, every step through the underbrush, was a reminder of the harshness of her existence, where one wrong move could cost her everything. The jungle was alive with sounds, the rustling of leaves, the distant calls of unseen animals, and the soft, steady thumping of her heartbeat. Naru moved silently, as the rhythm of the hunt took over. Her senses sharpened, every detail around her becoming vivid in her mind. The crunch of twigs beneath her feet, the faintest movement in the distance, she knew the forest as if it were a part of her, every tree and every creature. She was not just a daughter of her tribe, she was its protector, though none of them yet saw her as one. Then, in the stillness of the moment, the ground trembled slightly. Naru's eyes snapped up, scanning the sky above. For a split second, everything seemed to freeze, as though the entire forest held its breath. A flash of light cut across the heavens, too bright, too fast. At first, she thought it was a streak of lightning, but the sky was clear, no clouds, no storm. It was something else. A craft, an object moving with an unnatural precision, its shape undefined by the distance. The light was strange, an eerie glow that painted the clouds with hues of green and violet. It passed so quickly that Naru barely had time to comprehend what she had seen before it disappeared behind the dense canopy. Her pulse quickened. This was no ordinary sight. It was not the way a bird flew, or how a meteor fell. There was something deliberate about it, something alien. Shaken but intrigued, Naru pressed on with her hunt, though her senses remained heightened. Every snap of a twig beneath her foot seemed louder, every rustle of leaves more significant. She felt as if the forest was alive with secrets, watching, waiting. In the distance, her sharp eyes caught movement, a silhouette that wasn't quite right. At first, she thought it was an animal, perhaps a large predator. But no. It moved too fluidly, its shape bending unnaturally in and out of view. It shimmered, as if part of it dissolved into the air itself, blending with the shadows of the forest. Naru froze, her breath catching in her throat. She had heard stories from the elders about spirits of the forest, but this was no spirit. No, this was something far worse. The creature was not from her world, and it was watching her. The figure moved again, now closer, just out of her reach. Naru's heart pounded in her chest, but she stayed still, barely breathing, her eyes never leaving the shimmering form. It was almost as if the forest itself had transformed into something darker, as if the trees, the earth, and the very air were now holding their breath with her. She had no idea what she was dealing with, an unseen enemy, a hunter as elusive as the shadows it moved through. But she knew one thing for certain: the battle for survival had just begun. The hunt had changed. The forest erupted in chaos, the once peaceful jungle now alive with fear and confusion. Naru's tribe, scattered and disoriented, scrambled to defend themselves against a threat they had never seen before. The air was thick with the acrid scent of smoke from the burning village, a faint haze clinging to the trees like a lingering curse. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet, a deep, vibrating tremor that seemed to echo from the very core of the earth. The trees swayed violently, their branches groaning, as if they too were aware of the unnatural presence. And then, from the depths of the dense undergrowth, came a low, guttural growl, a sound unlike any animal Naru had ever heard. It was not the roar of a lion or the howl of a wolf. No, this sound was alien, primal, terrifying. Naru's heart raced as she scanned the area, her body tense with anticipation. The shadows seemed to ripple, as though the forest itself was bending to something unseen, and in those shadows, there was movement. Something or someone was out there, watching. Without warning, a figure lunged from the darkness. It was massive, towering over the trees, its body a grotesque combination of sinew and muscle. The creature's skin was slick and wet, covered in dark, alien patterns, its sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Its eyes, glowing an unnatural red, locked onto its prey, Naru's tribe. But as quickly as it had appeared, it disappeared. Vanished into the air, as though it had never been there at all. Naru's breath caught in her throat. She had seen it, something that moved like smoke, like a mirage. It was gone in an instant, leaving only the scent of ozone and a deep, unsettling silence in its wake. She knew then that this was no ordinary beast. It was a hunter, a predator, with skills beyond anything her people had ever encountered. The forest erupted again, but this time, it wasn't just the creatures of the jungle. The sky above split with a bright flash, and a low hum filled the air. From above, the unmistakable sound of a spacecraft. A strange, sleek craft hovered just out of reach, its surface gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. It was the ship of the alien hunters, the Predators. As the ship descended, it cloaked itself in invisibility, but Naru could feel the tremors as its weight broke through the air, like the footsteps of a giant. And then, from the shadows, they came more of the creatures, their bodies shimmering in and out of visibility as they moved with predatory grace. The battle was swift and brutal. The creatures' advanced technology made them nearly impossible to hit, their cloaking devices rendering them invisible to the naked eye. But Naru was not just a simple hunter. She was resourceful. She knew the forest better than anyone, and she used every tool at her disposal. Using the dense foliage to her advantage, she set traps of her own. She dug deep pits, camouflaged them with leaves, and used vines to trip the creatures as they attempted to stalk her. The odds were against her, but she refused to back down. Her tribe fought valiantly, but the odds were stacked in favor of the alien invaders. The air crackled with the sounds of laser weapons firing, their bright light cutting through the darkness like a sudden storm. The predators were relentless, their weapons capable of tearing through trees and armor alike. And yet, Naru's resolve only grew stronger. She dodged and weaved, using her agility and knowledge of the land to evade the hunters. She was quick, her instincts sharp as a hawk, each move deliberate and calculated. She understood now that these creatures were not just after food or sport, they were here to hunt, to kill, and to prove their superiority. Amidst the chaos, Naru was separated from her tribe. Her heart pounded in her chest as she ran, her legs carrying her through the dense foliage, but before she could gain any distance, a net of glowing energy whipped around her, ensnaring her in its invisible grip. The world spun as she was dragged off the ground, her body suspended in the air like a helpless prey. Naru struggled against the energy field, but it was no use. The alien technology was too advanced, too powerful. She was pulled towards the dark shape of a hovering craft, its cold, metallic surface gleaming in the light of the burning jungle. The craft's entrance opened, revealing the cold, sterile interior of the ship. The alien's predators stood around her, their alien eyes locked onto her, their movements predatory. She could see their weapons glinting in the dim light, blades, spears, and gauntlets that emitted a low hum, their power palpable. Naru's mind raced. These hunters didn't just hunt animals. They hunted the strongest, the fiercest. And she, Naru, had become their prey. As she was dragged toward the center of the ship, she could feel the cold of the metal floor beneath her feet. The ship hummed with a strange, mechanical rhythm, like the heartbeat of some great, unknowable machine. She could feel their eyes upon her, their curiosity mixed with disdain. They saw her as nothing more than another animal to capture, to study, to kill. But Naru was no helpless prey. The skills she had honed over years of surviving in the wilds of her world were not just for hunting animals, they were for surviving. And she would survive this. She had learned to use every resource, every environment, every tool at her disposal. The energy net that held her could be broken, the ship's advanced locks could be undone, and these invaders, these hunters, would soon learn that no matter how powerful their technology was, the will to survive was stronger. Naru's mind focused, her instincts took over. She twisted her wrists, feeling for the smallest gap in the net's energy field. Her pulse quickened. She was so close. Then, with a sudden, powerful movement, she broke free. The ship's energy field flickered, and she dropped to the floor with a thud. Now, free, she was no longer the hunted. She would become the hunter. The battle was far from over. The forest was alive with the sounds of the wind whispering through the trees, and the distant cries of unseen creatures. Naru moved carefully through the underbrush, her every step deliberate and silent. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel it in her bones. The hunt was no longer just a test of survival. It was a game of strategy, one in which the stakes were higher than ever before. For days, she had watched the predator, its every move, its every tactic. She had studied the way it moved, the way it used its advanced cloaking technology, its weapons, and its relentless pursuit. But Naru was not like the others. She was not a warrior with the strength of a bear or the speed of a wolf. She was something more, a strategist. She could turn the very forest into a weapon. And that was exactly what she planned to do. The trees around her seemed to close in, their towering trunks like silent sentinels. The scent of moss and damp earth filled her senses. She knelt down, her hands brushing the cool ground, feeling the pulse of the forest beneath her fingers. She knew these woods like the back of her hand, and now, every inch of the terrain would serve her. Naru began to set her traps. Vines were strung between trees, carefully hidden beneath layers of leaves and branches, their tension ready to snap at the slightest disturbance. She sharpened stones into deadly points, each one ready to be hurled with precision. Small pits were dug, their edges camouflaged, and covered with the lightest layer of soil. Every step, every movement was calculated. The forest itself was her weapon now, and she would use it to outsmart the predator. The sound of a twig snapping behind her sent a chill down her spine. Her senses were heightened, every nerve alive with anticipation. She had known the predator was close. She could feel its presence, the air around her thickening, as if the very atmosphere were charged with its unnatural energy. It was watching her, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But Naru was ready. She had been ready for this moment. With a swift motion, she activated the trap. The vines snapped tight, ensnaring the predator's legs, causing it to stumble. The creature roared in fury, its figure flickering in and out of visibility as it struggled against the restraints. Naru's heart pounded in her chest, but she remained calm. She knew the key to defeating this predator was not in strength, but in outwitting it, in using its overconfidence against it. She grabbed her weapon, a long, sharpened spear, and leapt from her hiding place, her movements quick and fluid. The predator turned just in time to see her, but it was too late. Naru was already in motion, her spear aimed directly at its weak point. She struck, but the blow only grazed the creature's shoulder, causing it to stagger back with a hiss of pain. The predator retaliated quickly, its wrist-mounted blades extending with a snap, its eyes burning with anger. But Naru was already gone, disappearing back into the jungle, her speed unmatched. The battle had only just begun, and she was determined to finish it on her terms. The forest was dark now, the shadows deep and suffocating. Naru and the predator circled each other in the stillness, their breath the only sound that broke the silence. Her dog, a loyal companion and sharp-eyed tracker, growled low beside her, its senses also on high alert. Naru had learned to trust the animal's instincts, and now, in the heat of battle, it was more than just a companion, it was a partner. The predator's cloaking device flickered, its figure visible only in brief moments as it blended into the environment. But Naru had learned its pattern. She knew where it would be before it even moved. Every step, every motion, was anticipated, calculated. Naru's eyes narrowed as the predator emerged from the shadows. She felt the familiar rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was it. The final confrontation. With a quick motion, she hurled a sharp stone at the predator, distracting it long enough for her to slip behind it. The stone struck its armor, sending sparks flying. The creature turned, its eyes flashing with fury, but Naru was already gone, hidden once more in the darkness. She was a ghost, a shadow in the night, her body moving like the wind, silent and swift. The predator swung its blades wildly, its rage blinding it, but it could not catch her. Not this time. Naru moved quickly, her spear in hand, waiting for the perfect moment. The predator's cloak flickered again, its invisibility wavering for just an instant. That was all Naru needed. She lunged, her spear aimed for the heart of the beast. The predator's roar of pain echoed through the trees as the spear pierced its armor, the force of the blow sending it crashing to the ground. Naru stood over it, her breath heavy, her heart racing, but her resolve unwavering. The predator struggled, its massive form thrashing against the earth, but Naru's victory was inevitable. She drove the spear deeper, the final blow cutting through its defenses. With a final, ragged breath, the creature fell silent. The forest around her seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with the scent of blood and the weight of the battle. Naru stood victorious, her chest rising and falling with exertion, her eyes locked onto the fallen hunter at her feet. She had defeated it, not with brute strength, but with cunning, wit, and a deep understanding of the world around her. Her dog approached, its tail wagging, and Naru gave it a brief, grateful glance. She had won, but the victory came at a cost. The forest had been changed, and with it, the balance of power between hunter and hunted. But for now, Naru could rest. The predator was dead. The jungle was hers once more. The sky was streaked with the warm glow of the setting sun as Naru returned to her village. The smoke from the battle still lingered in the air, but the heavy scent of ash had begun to dissipate, replaced by the earthy freshness of the forest after the storm. The trees, towering and ancient, stood as silent witnesses to the triumphs and losses of the tribe. They whispered softly in the wind, their leaves rustling as if they too acknowledged the shift in the balance of power. Naru walked through the village, her movements steady, her face etched with exhaustion, but also with an undeniable sense of pride. Her once dirted clothes were now torn and stained with the evidence of her victory blood, both alien and her own, marking the struggle that had brought her here. Yet, she held her head high, her eyes burning with the fire of a warrior who had not only survived but had conquered the impossible. The villagers gathered around her in awe, their eyes wide with disbelief and admiration. They had seen the destruction of their homes, the chaos of the attack, but now, before them, stood the one who had overcome it. Naru had faced a foe unlike any they could comprehend, an enemy from the stars, and returned victorious. It was a feat that no one thought possible, and yet, she had done it. As Naru entered the heart of the village, the elders stepped forward, their faces softened by a new understanding. They had doubted her strength, dismissed her as too young, too untested. But now, they saw something far greater than physical power. They saw intelligence, adaptability, and an unyielding spirit that had turned the tide of battle in her favor. The tribe's leader, an old man whose skin was marked by age and wisdom, stepped forward, his voice filled with reverence. "You have proven what we could not see," he said, his tone deep and respectful. "You have shown that survival is not just about strength, but about the mind. It is through ingenuity and the will to adapt that we endure. You are not just a hunter, you are a protector of our people." The crowd murmured in agreement, and for the first time, Naru felt the weight of their respect. She had not only defeated a physical threat, she had shown her tribe the true power of survival, the power of the mind. It was a victory that would be remembered, not just for the battle itself, but for the lesson it imparted. Strength alone would not sustain them. It was their ability to adapt, to think, and to overcome that would allow them to thrive in this wild, unpredictable world. As night began to fall, casting long shadows over the village, Naru stood at the edge of the clearing, her gaze fixed upon the sky. The stars above were brilliant, each one twinkling like a distant promise, but it was the movements in the heavens that caught her attention, the flickering, erratic patterns of light that drifted across the vast expanse. UFOs. She knew them now, their shapes unmistakable, their presence undeniable. The same ships that had terrorized her people, the same predators that had come from the farthest reaches of space. They circled in the distance, their silent forms appearing and disappearing in the darkness, like sentinels watching over a world that was not their own. Naru's breath caught in her chest as she watched them. A part of her knew that the danger was far from over. These beings, these hunters, would not simply disappear into the night. They would return, drawn to this world by the challenge, by the thrill of the hunt. But now, as she stood on the precipice of this new reality, Naru felt something different. Something powerful. The battle had shown her something about herself, something deeper than her ability to fight. She had learned to harness the power of the land, to understand the delicate balance of nature and the secrets it held. She had seen the technology of the aliens, their deadly weapons and cloaking devices, and yet, it was her ingenuity, her connection to the earth, that had triumphed. The wind tugged at her hair, and she tightened her grip on her spear, the weapon now a symbol not just of survival, but of her growth. She was no longer just a girl from the village. She was a warrior, a strategist, and a protector. And the world was no longer just her home, it was a battlefield, one where she was ready to face whatever challenges came next. As the UFOs drifted overhead, Naru stood tall, her gaze unwavering. The stars above were a reminder of the unknown, of the vastness of the universe, and the creatures that lurked within it. But for Naru, it was also a reminder of her strength. She had faced the unimaginable and emerged victorious. She had proven that no matter how great the threat, she would stand ready. The wind whispered through the trees, as if the earth itself was nodding in agreement. Naru was ready for whatever came next, for whatever challenges the stars would bring. She was no longer just a girl of the tribe. She was a force, one that would stand against any predator, any alien, any darkness that dared threaten her world. And as she watched the UFOs fade into the distance, Naru felt a sense of peace settle over her. The night was still, but she knew that the future would bring more battles. But now, more than ever, she knew that no enemy was too great, no challenge too daunting. For as long as she stood, the hunt would continue, but it would no longer be her world that feared the unknown. It would be the hunters themselves. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the mysteries of the universe. At the UFO Enigma, we explore the unknown, question the impossible, and uncover the secrets of UFOs, aliens, and beyond. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an exciting new story. Until next time, keep looking up, because the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered.